There are fewer than 30 men in the world qualified to drive Formula One. A mere half dozen, perhaps, to win. At this moment, I'm inclined to think you're not one of them.
You know you want to. Keep up the good work, and there you have it. There you go. With the qualifying.
Welcome to F1Weekly.com. My name is Clark Rogers. I'm the host of the program. I'll be joined by Nasser Hamid, my co-host. This is podcast number 1063, October 1st, 2024. Nasser.
Thank you, sir. I say Dingo Day afternoon for Danny Rick. Michael Andretti in the same boat as Ken Tyrrell and Ron Dennis. And Jos the boss has beef with the FIA. We shall explain tenderly. Now back to Mr. Wolfgang Puck of podcasting.
Thank you, Nasser. On today's program, Renault ends their engine program, a program steeped in Formula One history. Ricciardo should be depressed but isn't, whilst LCH is depressed but shouldn't. And Fernando, he tells Adrian Newey to please hurry up. In this week's interview, a young and upcoming French driver, Enzo Deligny. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, I do need to remind everybody that please, we do need your contributions to keep this program alive and on the cloud. So just click on the Support F1 Weekly tab. You know you want to. Nas, welcome to the studio. How are you?
All is well here and dry on the right course, at least in my hood. I have survived another Florida hurricane. How are things in the land of taquitos and burritos?
The Ortega burgers are still on the grill and delicious. Everything is fine. We're even having a heat wave this week here in Northern California. So it's all par for the course. Of course, the big news for me, hit me right in the gut and in the heart, is Renault leaving. But we knew this was happening in the future. Of course, Alpine would stick around with Mercedes power, but I mean, come on. Really? It's just not kosher as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let me start with some very good news. First of all, many thanks to Mr. Paul Velasco at GrandPrix247.com in Berlin, Germany. Through his efforts, FIA has approved yours truly for media credentials for the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. So I am totally elated. It will be nice to be back in the paddock for the first time since Miami Grand Prix. It's very painful to watch a Formula One Grand Prix from the grandstands, I must confess. I have already sent out emails to Mercedes for an audience with Toto. It's called an interview. And the gentleman, Bradley Lord, the PR gentleman, was kind enough to respond quickly, saying Toto has a busy schedule, so that was a first surprise, but they will keep me posted. Pretty much the same response from Sauber for an interview request with Bottas, and they have also requested, like Junior Series, to let me know what kind of questions I will be asking. Normally, I don't ask Formula One drivers about Major League Baseball and Hockey League or, canoeing in Congo. But you have to meet the requirements if you want to talk to them. There is really no point in wasting my time trying to get an audience with the heavy hitters, and we all know who they are. I am hoping there will be many other F1 personalities like Mika Hakkinen, Damon Hill, and hopefully they will not have a very busy schedule. Let's see how it works out. Which brings me to your favorite question. Who will be wearing a Stetson and holding Smith & Wesson on the top step of the podium in Austin, Texas? Most likely McLaren will win. That's what I think. But I also think a Ferrari victory will be very popular, but that can be said for any track. Same with Ombre, who won the first Formula One race in Austin. In case you are wondering who could that be, it's your favorite, LCH. What are the chances of a Max Verstappen and Red Bull victory in your very unbiased and ever so humble opinion?
Well, it could be pretty tough. Who knows what's going on at Red Bull? They win a few races and then they went downhill faster than a block of ice on a hot, busy street in Los Angeles. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. It all seems very suspicious to me, and it should. But, I suspect that they will make a comeback late in the season and Max will win everything again. But besides that, it's all about Norris and whether Piastri is going to come out of his shell and be machismo. So, I don't know. And apparently LCH and Mercedes, sometimes they're fast, sometimes they're not fast. He's in a good mood, he's depressed. Who knows what's going on in that medical, traumatic place called Mercedes?
Speaking of Red Bull, one of their few race-winning drivers had a visit from the Western Union man after the Singapore Grand Prix with the message, "Your services are no longer required." So today we will look at the life and times of the man who rattled the cage of Vettel. We call this segment The Rise and Fall of Daniel Ricciardo. Engelbert Humperdinck had a question in a song. Should I stay or should I go? The band had one more song to play. Daniel Ricciardo had a similar question for USGP at Austin. Should I race or should I retire? By now we know the answer. Red Bull in the past have never been shy in swinging the Marco machete. Not sure what took them so long this time. Ricciardo's journey from Perth, Western Australia to peak performance started with karting in 1998 at the age of 9. After racing in Western Australia Formula 4 Championship in 2005, his first foray into international racing came in 2006 in the Formula BMW Asia Championship, and that's when he first appeared on my racing radar. And he was third in the championship behind Kiwi Earl Bamber, who is still racing, and fellow Aussie mate Sam Abe. And I remember both these kids from their junior days. No idea where Sam is these days. Then Ricciardo would make a kangaroo leap into the cutthroat world of European racing. His first championship success came in the 2008 Formula Renault 2.0 WEC Western European Countries Championship. Same season, he was second in the main Formula Renault 2.0 Euro Cup behind Valtteri Bottas. And there is very interesting YouTube video from this series, but I think it's one of the final races where Bottas is leading for a long time, and then Daniel Ricciardo would do his very famous late-breaking, what he would call it, send it move. Very impressive. In 2009, Ricciardo won the British Formula 3 Championship, taking 7 wins from 20 starts with Carlin Motorsports. And of course, he was part of the Red Bull program by now. In 2010, he was second to Russian driver Mikhail Aleshin, who used to race here in Indy cars. And this was in the Formula Renault 3.5 series, also known as World Series by Renault. And I do remember watching this race live in the rain, the final race of the season on YouTube. Danny Boyle, like Vettel and Robert Kubica, would move into Formula One from this series by bypassing our favorite Rapidos, also known as GP2, which is now, of course, Formula 2. Red Bull released Ricciardo into the Piranha Pool with HRT, Hispania Racing Team, at the 2011 British Grand Prix. Next step was their junior team Toro Rosso for the 2012 and 2013 seasons. When they moved him to the mothership Red Bull in 2014, he surprised the hell out of me, and I'm guessing Sebastian Vettel also, by going 3-0 against Red Bull's first four-time world champion, and that was simply incredible. I really thought Ricciardo would take halfway through the season to catch up to Seb, but he was hit the ground running. That was very impressive. Ricciardo's first win was scored at the same track as maiden wins for LCH and Polish Prince. And of course, that would be Montreal. Ricciardo was third in the championship with 238 points, while Vettel was fifth with 167 points with no race wins. And this was after Seb had won 13 races in 2013, including the last 9 in a row. So kudos to Danny Rick for doing such a tremendous job. At this stage, Danny Rick had all the markings of becoming Australia's first world champion since Alan Jones in 1980. And as we all remember, his predecessor, Mr. Mark Webber, came very close. In 2015, Ricciardo had 2 podium finishes, Hungary and Singapore, and was 8th in the championship with 92, 3 points behind new teammate Daniel Kvyat. The Torpedo got a taste of his own medicine when he was demoted to junior team to make room for Red Bull's new love child at the Spanish Grand Prix of 2016. This was the force of nature, a tsunami from the dikes of Netherlands by the name of Max Verstappen. And things would never be the same again for Danny Rick or anyone. Of all the teammates Max has had in Formula One, nobody came close to the same level as Daniel Ricciardo. But the heat was too much for the Honey Badger, so for a fistful of dollars of $25 million, he became a skipper of the yellow submarine called Renault under Admiral Cyril Abiteboul. The turning point was the clash with his teammate in Baku, where everybody thought it was Max's fault, except for 3 people, Max, Christian Horner, and Dr. Marco. And we don't have to include his Papito Yaws because he will always be on his side, which is understandable. If Christian Horner's statement is to be believed, Red Bull offered to match Renault's offer to keep Ricciardo, but Daniel thought he knew better. According to a gentleman by the name of Enzo Ferrari, a driver is finished the moment he thinks of money. And Signor, you can call him Commendatore Ferrari, knew a thing or two about motor racing. Mr. Rogers, would you agree with me and most people that leaving Red Bull first time out was the beginning of the end for the Honey Badger?
It was indeed the end. He could never recover. We don't know what happened, but Max, the heat from that hot kitchen over at Red Bull, from Max Verstappen, obviously, removed the machismo mojo from Ricciardo, and he never recovered. He just could not. We had one podium at Renault. McLaren was a disaster. So whatever happened, and he must move on. And he's got plenty of money, plenty of investments to just manage and handle. He'll be just fine, and he'll probably be on Australian television.
Daniel Ricciardo's everlasting achievement at Renault was getting a tattoo somewhere on Cyril Abiteboul's body by taking a podium finish in third at Nürburgring, and I think this race was called the Eiffel Grand Prix in 2020 with the French team. More money on the table made Ricciardo move from Renault to McLaren. With them, he would have his last stop of the podium glory in Parco Monza. But for whatever reason, the mojo and the bite of the honey badger was gone, and he could not even rattle the cage of young whippersnapper by the name of Lando Norris. But even this worked to his benefit. He laughed all the way to the bank when Zak Brown paid millions and millions not to race with them. Red Bull brought him back to Formula One, hoping to check out Checo with Ricciardo, but then he injured his wrist at Zandvoort, and that pretty much set the stage for what was to come. Red Bull Jr. Liam Lawson replaced him for a few races and did a pretty decent job. This year, the man who drove Seb out of Red Bull could not even match Yuki Tsunoda. Now the Aussie mate is out and the Kiwi is retaking his seat. In the final analysis, the way Daniel Ricciardo is departing the F1 arena is nothing new in Formula One. Toyota did not give Ralf Schumacher a sentimental sayonara at Benihana. At least, Red Bull did not do to Danny Rick what Ferrari did to their greatest driver in 2006 at Monza. As soon as Schumacher crossed the line, winning the race by the way, they distributed a press release to all the media that Raikkonen will be replacing Michael for 2007. When all is said and done, the cows have come home and pigs have flown away from Piscataway International Airport, Ricciardo will do very well in life after F1. He made $50 million in 2 years sailing in the Yellow Submarine. McLaren paid him handsomely to leave the French team. Then, Zak paid him millions and millions from his brown bag not to race with the McLaren team. Ricciardo is dating an Austrian hottie who is the daughter of Gerhard Berger and very easy on the eyes. Danny's great and ever-smiling personality should land him a job somewhere in the TV booth or Le NASCAR or Aussie supercars. He has gone on record saying Indy cars still scare him, and I think that's because of the high speed on ovals. Ricciardo wrote on Instagram, "I've loved this sport my whole life. It's wild and wonderful and been a journey. To the teams and individuals that have played their part, thanks. To the fans who love the sport sometimes more than me, haha, thank you. It'll always have its highs and lows, but it's been fun, and truth be told, I wouldn't change it until the next adventure." And that was interesting. Now, here is Dr. Marco's mantra on DR. He did an interview with German website motorsportstotal.com, and he said that Ricciardo's exit from Red Bull was a turning point in his career. He goes on to say, and I quote, "I think the decision to leave Red Bull Racing was the turning point in his career. Then he didn't have a winning car at either Renault or McLaren. He did win at Monza, but those were special circumstances. I don't know what exactly happened, because if we knew, we would have helped him. But the speed and above all, this late braking and then he goes left or right. In these last few years he tried, but it was no longer there. The killer instinct was gone." End quote. And here's an interesting situation between Dr. Marco and Daniel Ricciardo, which took place early in his days with Red Bull. He was asked by a team to show up for a test session, and he told them on the phone, "Hey, I won't be able to drive much," as he had injured his wrist in a biking accident or something like that. And according to Daniel Ricciardo, he got to the city where the test was taking place, and early morning he gets a wake-up call from Dr. Marco, who was brief and hung up after just saying, "You're an idiot." So Dr. Marco is pretty good for giving you an early morning call. Now, some people are saying Red Bull were very disrespectful to Daniel Ricciardo and how this was handled. Well, it certainly could have been done more gracefully, but let's look at the big picture. Seats in Formula One are allocated on the Janet Jackson program, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" Have you brought me a $20 million check from your country's oil company? Here's looking at you, Maldonado and Haryanto. Or have you sent a $25 million wire transfer from Bank of Montreal? Who could that be? One thing is for sure, Daniel Ricciardo will be remembered as one of the best personalities ever to race in Formula One. I will remember him with very positive vibes. I hope we continue to see him in Formula One paddock. Maybe he can be teammate to Gunther Steiner at Sky TV and they can do a Wanker on Wallaby show. Let me ask you the question you asked me when Raikkonen retired. Mr. Rogers, will you miss Daniel Ricciardo?
Of course I'll miss Danny for a little while, but I still miss Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill. So, yeah, these guys linger in your thoughts for many years, and he'll be around, he'll be interviewed, he'll help young drivers, who knows, but these guys always stick around. We still see Jacques and Damon Hill practically on a weekly basis when Danica Patrick isn't available. So, no worries, he'll be around, and I'll miss him for a couple months.
Now we go to Yost the Boss and his beef with FIA. Now, obviously, a lot of people are frustrated, pissed off at FIA on this handling of Max Verstappen, F word. And he was speaking to Autosport, and this is what he was quoted as saying. I think that is the most ridiculous thing, but we also see it in rally. I don't think the FIA is doing a very good job, end quote. So basically this refers to the president, Mohammed bin Sulayem. Recently, Sebastian Ogier received a suspended €30,000 fine for criticizing officials. No FIA president had many friends in the paddock. I guess you don't need them when you have the power. What is your take on this F1 issue, sir? I think it can take a life of its own if the flames are not put out quickly and properly. What say you?
Well, I think you're effing right. I mean, the biggest problem is Max's father is Jos. Jos Verstappen is one cussing son of a bitch. So, it's part of his personality. It's hard for him not to be able to say the effing word. So, it's tough. Let's not forget, many years ago in tennis, people never grunted. Now they grunt and it's accepted. So, let's let them cuss because it's entertaining. It makes for good television. So, that's my effing thought for the day.
Okay, sir, we have to give some information since there is no racing. So here are points scored since summer break. And this makes an interesting reading here. Driver who has scored the most points is, of course, the man on with the momentum, Mr. Lando Norris. He has scored 80 points. And not surprisingly, since the team is doing very well, second is his teammate Oscar Piastri, who has scored 70 points. Third is Ferrari numero uno Charles Leclerc, who has scored 68 points. Fourth is the man shooting for his fourth championship, Max, 54 points. And as we are from believers in misery loves company, sharing joint 8th place with 13 points each, we have Machismo and Checo. Now I think we need a break with some Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friend.
And on that note, Nasser, why don't we take a quick break, and we'll be back after these brief messages.
Hi, I'm Enzo Deligny, and you are listening to F1 Weekly.
Okay, folks, I'm here with Senor Federico Montoya. Federico, good to meet you, sir. How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm doing very good. Always good on a race day. Thank you so much. I remember you from your racing days. What are your racing adventures these days?
Oh, well, I stopped racing a while ago, and now I'm giving all my knowledge to the kids. I'm coaching in go-karting and also in cars in open wheel.
When you were racing, did you ask your brother for racing tips?
Always, and not only him, my dad too. He used to race, so They were always on my back, so I got a few tips from them.
You know, long before Juan started racing here, I used to hear the name Diego Montoya. That's your uncle, right?
Yeah, that's my uncle. He used to race. He did the 24 hours of Le Mans. So he raced in, I think it was the BMW, the M1.
Oh yeah, beautiful car.
Yeah, so he raced.
Yeah, that name was very familiar here in the U.S. Now, how popular is motorsports in Colombia?
Well, after my brother, everything become like really popular. Before that, it was hard because people, all the companies didn't want to sponsor the kids and new talents. But now they start to grow, and well, it's getting bigger and bigger. But you know, our country doesn't support as much as the other countries, so that's the issue with Colombia.
What in terms of karting facilities across the country? Do you have a good karting program like they do in Finland?
Well, over there in Colombia, they have few new tracks. Everything start growing. There is a few academies, but I mean, they don't have all the knowledge because the people that do it, they are drivers that didn't succeed in racing, and they didn't have the chance to come overseas to do racing. So it's just local experience that they have.
Now, recently there were reports that there may be a Formula One race in Colombia, I think like Cartagena. Any scoop on that?
It will be, yeah, it's a city in Barranquilla that it's like an hour away. Well, it's tough to say if they're going to make it or not, but it will be really good for Colombia and for motorsport to have a race in the Caribbean, but it's just expectations. We don't know yet if it's going to happen or not.
And who better to wave the checkered flag than Juan Pablo Montoya?
Well, that will be another good hint for the race, and it will be a show for Colombia to have my brother.
Incredible talent. Okay, now when it comes to coaching young drivers, do you run into drivers who think they know everything?
Most of the kids, I would say 70%, they think they know everything. So it's really tough because they don't pay attention to the father. But once they have a coach, they think they know more than the coach. So it's a tough situation, but I already know how to work with that. So
does that include slapping them?
If I have to, yes. But no, just basically with kids, it's watching videos, and it's a process that takes time for them to learn. So sometimes you have to repeat 2 to 3 times or even more than that. But it's a good process for them.
You know, some years ago I was talking to a team owner, and one of the drivers who tested with him made it to Formula One, and he said the guy just would not listen. So I called his father. I don't want to take the name here, but he's here, and the father said if he's not listening to him, just slap him. So
well, it's not just that, but sometimes kids or teenagers, they don't listen to their parents. They need somebody away from the family or close to them to let them know that they're making a few mistakes and you can change that. But everything happens here when you coach. It's either they want to learn, listen to get better. That's the only way to do it.
Are there any common mistakes you see among young drivers making?
Well, it's like I was saying to you, the driver has to make the choice if they want to succeed or not. I will give them all my knowledge, but if they don't put that in practice, it's hard to make it.
We have some revving going on here. Okay, you're also involved with Lucas Racing School, and it has become very popular in the series. Can you tell us about this program, please?
Yeah, this program is getting really popular down here in South Florida. It's a school that all the cars are equal for the kids. They are not allowed to touch when they do first they do the racing school, but when they do the racing series, they are not allowed to touch. Once you touch or put 4 wheels on the grass, you will be penalized. And I recommend this school for kids that they want to start on Formula cars and open wheel. it's something that is not as expensive as the other series, and you will learn a lot. So
How many races in this series and estimate cost to do the season?
I think there are like 8 weekends,
Okay, I have so much.
and it's 3 races per weekend, and the cost is around, I think per weekend is like 8,000.
Oh, that's very reasonable for 3 races. And are they taking place always at the same track or different places?
No, not all the time. Most of the times they take place in Sebring, down here in Homestead, and sometimes they go up north, but basically it's between those two. And sometimes also in Daytona, but it's hard because of the schedule, but normally they go to Sebring.
Speaking of track, you've raced quite a few places. What was your favorite racing track?
For me, my favorite track was, well, I went to Spa, but apart from Spa and Monza, I will say Imola. Yeah, it was really nice track.
Okay, I have to ask you about going into Eau Rouge and going into Acqua Minerale. How exciting are those 2 places?
Well, there are 2 different kind of turns, but going to Eau Rouge the first few times is like scary because you don't see anything, so it's a blind corner. And Acqua Minerale, it's really tough to do it, but it was fun to race there, and that track has a lot of memories. So yeah.
I was at Imola, man, going into Acqua Minerale, coming up to Alta Variante. That's where I sat for it was the 2004. Your brother was in that race, driving the Walrus Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, now, how long do you think young drivers should stay in karting before going into single-seaters?
I mean, it's a good question because there is not an age that you will have to say, oh, it has to be until a certain age. No. I mean, it comes to, there are some young talents. You see Verstappen, he was a young kid at 15, 16 he was already driving cars, but normally, yeah, it's between that age, between 14 and 16.
Now, your nephew, Juan's son Sebastian, is in the Red Bull program. Tell us a little bit about the background to this program and what is he up to this season?
Well, the Red Bull program has a really good, it's a really good program for teenagers and young talents. And, well, they give the opportunity to Sebastian this year to race the FIA Formula 3. Well, it's really tough program because they start with a few drivers, and each year either they keep the same drivers or get new drivers. It's a good opportunity for Sebastian to show his talent. He's growing up and now being a grown-up man. So hopefully he do a really good season this year. Now he's doing the Formula Regional Middle East before the championship starts, and well, hopefully he gets good results. He didn't have good luck this weekend, but it is what it is in racing. Few weekends you could have bad races, some weekends you have good races, but hope the best for him this year.
Your brother had some great wins like the Italian Grand Prix with Williams and the Michigan 500 over Michael Andretti. What Juan Pablo's races stand out for you?
Well, I mean, for me, even though it's my brother, it amazed me all the challenges that he had and the opportunities that he got. He really took care of them, meaning that when he had the chance to race in a champ car, he gave all that he had, and well, he was champion. The same thing when he went to Formula 1. I mean, he's a driver that he's not scared of nobody, and he just go for the win. Whatever it takes for him to win, he will do it. So those races mean a lot to me.
You know, I was at the race Indy 500 when he raced their first time. Absolutely dominated. I was unbelievable, absolutely incredible. Now I just noticed you're wearing a very important cap that says GOAT. So I have to ask you, who is the GOAT for you in Formula One, apart from your brother?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, the GOAT doesn't mean like anything to me, but is something that I see that my brother is the temperament, that his attitude and everything. It's something like a goat that doesn't take nothing from nobody. So
He's a ram.
Exactly. So it's more or less the other one that I see like that. It will be Kimi, some driver that doesn't take anything from nobody.
Now, speaking of Kimi, your brother was teammate with him at McLaren. Has he ever shared any stories about Kimi?
Well, I was racing back then in Europe, so I was close to him, and well, it was a tough relationship because both of them, they collapsed together because the temperament that they have, both of them, it's really hard, and they just go for the win.
Now, thank you so much for your time. Would you have a message for our listeners? We've been doing a podcast since 2005. We have listeners all over the world, including your country, believe it or not. So anything you want to say to our listeners?
Well, I mean, all the people that are listening and they are involved in motorsport, and also the drivers, if they want to succeed, it's their passion, just go for your dreams. Never stop believing in yourself and believing you can do it. So that will be my message for everyone.
Very well said. Gracias, muchachos, amigo.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to F1Weekly.com. Clark Rogers here, your host. And now, as we spin the globe and go around the world with Motorsports Mondial and the king, the Swami himself, Nasser Hamid.
Greetings and racing regards. Welcome to Motorsport Mondial. Let's start with interview of the week. Today in Palatial Studios we have Mr. International and Red Bull Junior Enzo Deligny. Interesting story here. Thanks to him for his time. Conversation took place at Imola last month, where he was racing in Formula Regional Europe by Alpine, also known as FRECA.
Okay, folks, I'm here with a fast and young driver, Enzo Deligny. Enzo, nice to meet you. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Okay, your dad was Chinese Volkswagen Polo Cup champion. How old were you when you decided to get into racing?
I was 5 years old when I got into it in Shanghai, China.
And were you quick from the word get-go?
Yeah, I mean, it started as a hobby, as something fun, but we quickly saw that there was potential for something bigger.
Now, you are very international. Your dad is French, your mom is Chinese, you used to live in California. Where are you based these days?
Right now I'm based in Milan in Italy, so it's pretty much in the center of Europe, and it's pretty nice to travel everywhere. It makes it quite easy.
And it's close to Parco Monza.
Yeah, exactly. It's right next to Monza, so that's quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this year you are racing in Formula Regional Europe. You have 2 top 5 finishes. You are 11th in the championship. How big is the difference between this car and the Formula 4 car you drove last year?
Yeah, there's a decent step, I'd say. More downforce, bigger car, higher speed on the straights, so it's definitely been a step to adapt. It's been quite tricky with the team this year. We've had a couple issues, but yeah, today it's gone quite well, so it looks like we're going in a good direction.
Okay, in terms of depth of competition, do you find it a lot more challenging than what you were racing against last year?
Yeah, I mean, last year there was also a good level, but this year there's really, I think, a really good level with some drivers in their second year that are really, really quick, so it's good to try and learn from them.
Now, racing drivers are very strong-headed people. They just want to do things on their own. Have you ever employed a driver coach, or you've been just doing it like trial and error?
No, I have a driver coach that I worked with since I came to Europe. He's a 3-time karting world champion, Lorenzo Travazanuto. So, yeah, I've been working with him really closely to help me throughout my career here.
Yeah, that's a very well-known name in karting. Okay, after Imola, where we are today, there are 3 more rounds remaining. What is the best position you can achieve in the championship?
I think at the start of the year, I think we were hoping for a little better, but the pace just hasn't quite been there this year so far. Right now I think we're 10th in the championship after someone got penalties, so I think top 8, top 7 would be quite achievable and would be okay for first year.
Can you win a race this year?
I hope so, but yeah, let's say it's gonna have to be. We're gonna have to get everything perfect, and it's gonna have to be quite different conditions.
Okay. Last year you won 2 races in the Spanish F4, finished in the top 5 in the championship, and you were Rookie of the Year. Were you satisfied with the results, or were you hoping for more?
No, like overall, I think it was a positive year. Like, you know, I think I got like a lot of podiums, a couple wins. So I think overall, if you look back at it, it's quite a positive year, even though a couple things could have went better.
Okay. You were 16 years old and in the Red Bull Junior program. Please tell us how this deal came about. Did you reach out to them, or did the good Dr. Marco call you or sent you a text message?
Yeah, it was in karting when it was my second year in Europe, and I was doing really good in karting, and my manager is quite close with Red Bull, so they got in contact, and we managed to sort out an agreement for me to get in the junior team.
And who is your manager?
Guillaume Le Goff is the same manager as Pierre Gasly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And if I may ask, has Red Bull given you any minimum requirement from the season, like you need to finish in the top 10 or win X number of races? Do they set some goals before the season starts?
No, it's not like some other academies. There's not an X number of wins or whatever. It's just a general, like just to be performing at the front and be there. So there isn't like a specific requirement, let's say.
Okay, you have raced in go-karts both in the US and Europe successfully, like you said. Did you notice any major differences between the two places in terms of style of racing and depth of competition?
Compared from US to Europe?
Yes.
Yeah, I switched when I was still in karting from the US to Europe, and it was quite different because like the tires were different, the engine was different, a lot more powerful here, the racing was a lot more aggressive, so it was definitely you had to adapt and change your way of driving and learn so on, but in that I think I did quite well because already in my first year I won a race in OKJ, so yeah, it's quite a big step, but I think I did quite well to learn and to adapt.
Well, apart from this victory you mentioned, what were your other major achievements in karting both in US and Europe?
Like my achievements? Mm-hmm. Oh, so I finished second at the Super Nationals in 2019, which is like the Grand National race. So after that, when COVID hit, we decided to go to Europe, and already in my first year, like I said, I won a race, the pre-race of the World Championship that year in OKJ. Then the next year, I won already a race in OK Senior in my third race when I was still 13. So that was really good. And then I won another race later on in the summer and did a lot of other podiums. So yeah, in karting it was quite good with Parolin and my coach Travi. We worked really well all together, I think.
Your favorite karting track and also motor racing track?
Favorite karting track, I'd say Campillos in Spain. It's where I won my race in OK Junior. It's a really nice track for karting. A lot of uphill, downhill, elevation change. And car track, I have to say Spa. It's just such a legendary track, and when the second sector is really, really phenomenal, especially Eau Rouge as well, so it's probably my favorite track.
Okay. We do a podcast from California. Do you follow IndyCar racing or have any interest in someday doing the Indy 500?
Yeah, I follow IndyCar quite often. It's quite interesting. I think obviously F1 would be like the ultimate goal, but it's still nice to just be a race car driver, and even if it's IndyCar, I think IndyCar is a great league, and I watch it a lot. So I think, especially Indy 500 is a great race. I think it's one of the races that a lot of people want to win. So 100%, if one day I get an opportunity to do that, I would really want to do it. Yeah.
In terms of food choice, Peking duck or foie gras?
Food choice, I have to say foie gras. Foie gras, foie gras. Yeah, I quite like that.
Okay. Now, where will we see Enzo Deligny racing in 2025?
2025?
We need a scoop.
Let's just say most likely second year here in FRECA.
I think it's a good idea. I thank you so much for your time.
Merci beaucoup. Perfect.
This past weekend, the series FRECA was in Barcelona. Both races were won by James Wharton. He is managed by Nicola Todd and used to be in Ferrari Driver Academy. I have never met the kid, but I have had conversations with his papito a few times. Last time was last month at Imola. They are from Melbourne, Australia. There is a Melbourne in Florida also, but we ain't got no kangaroos and koalas. We got alligators and pink flamingos. And we have a championship winner from Brazil, Mr. Rafael Camara, and he is managed by Enrico Zannarini, who made his name managing Eddie Irvine and fame by asking the question for his other client, where is the winning car? Who could that be? Giancarlo Fisichella. Camara is a member of Ferrari Driver Academy. The driver currently leading Formula 2 is also from Brazil, Gabriele Bortoleto. He is with Zach Brown and McLaren. So hopefully we will see a Brazilian Grand Prix winner in our lifetime. It's been a while and no Brazilian world champion since Ayrton Senna. That is very sad, so hopefully one of these youths will change that. Mr. Rogers, the numbers are scary for us. I don't think we will make it to podcast 2000, but do you think we can wheelchair ourselves to podcast number 1500?
Of course we can, and I have a plan, Nasser. We will get AI to take over the podcasts, and it will just go on forever. Gracias.
Next, we move on to WRC, World Rally Championship in Chile. Oh, what a feeling for Toyota after taking first two places over a pair of Hyundais. Winner was Kalle Rovanperä of Finlandia. He is doing a limited season and this was his fourth victory of the season. Teammate from UK, Elvin Evans, was second, Ott Tanak from Estonia was third, and his Belgian teammate Thierry Neuville was fourth. In the Drivers' Championship, it is a Hyundai 1-2 at this time. Neuville leads over Tanak 207 points to 178. In the Constructors' Championship, Hyundai leads with 482 points. Toyota is second with 465 and Ford 245. Now we move on to F1 Academy. The ladies were in action in Singapore on the Grand Prix weekend. Both races were won by Abby Pulling from UK. The season is still on and she has already taken 7 wins, so very impressive. She leads the championship over French racer Dorian Parr, 245 points to 150. Best place American girl is Chloe Chambers. She is fourth in the championship with 103 points. You know, some years ago she won a race in the Formula, what was it called? I think it was called Toyota Racing Series, which runs in the early part of the season. Obviously a single-seater racing series. It's now called Formula Regional Oceania. So that victory was very impressive for Chloe. Leah Block, daughter of the late Ken Block, is 8th with 36 points. Now, once upon a time, Mr. Rogers, I saw Ken Block do donuts on the dock of an aircraft carrier. And man, that was very, very impressive. Now we go all the way to Indonesia, MotoGP from Mandalika in Indonesia. 4 Ducatis in the top 5. Winner was Jorge Martin over fellow Spaniard Pedro Acosta, who rides for Austrian KTM team. Pecco Bagnaia was third man on the podium. In the championship, Martin leads with 366 points. Bagnaia is second on 345, followed in third by Bastianini, who is also known as the Beast, and he has 291 points. Marc Marquez is fourth with 288 points. Like Formula 1, MotoGP also has Moto2 and Moto3, and the winner in Moto3 was, get ready Mr. Rogers, Alonso, David Alonso. He is muy macho hombre de Colombia. Next race is this weekend in Japan at Motegi, where once upon a time Miss Danica Patrick took her first and only race victory. Since the natives are polite, there was no shoe on the oval. The track is owned by Honda, and I am told they have a nice museum there featuring a McLaren Honda Formula One car. Next, we switch to IndyCar Indy Charter System. Long-awaited franchise system has been launched with express written consent of all teams. 3 is the maximum number of cars a team can have. The new Italian team Prema does not have a charter or franchise, I should say, but they can still race. They will not be paid from the prize fund though, which is nothing like the F1 payout. And sir, this American kid of Nigerian descent, Ugo Ugochukwu, who is under the wings of Zach Brown, and he was racing in Formula Regional this year, news came out that he will step up to Formula 3 with the Prema team. So we wish him all the best. And we did interview him last year. Okay, sir, some sad news to report. Rupert Keegan, he was on the James Hunt program, Let the Good Times Roll. This was not a problem for him, as his papito was the owner of an air charter company called British Air Ferries. He took part in 23 Formula One races. His best finish was 7th in the 1977 Austrian Grand Prix, driving for Penthouse Rizla Hesketh. Anyone following motor racing in the 70s would know the paint scheme. Very creative, I must say. He was suffering from cancer and passed away on September 23rd on the Italian island of Elba. He was 69 years old. Another passing, Rocky Moran. He raced in Indy cars and also Indy 500, of course, and he was teammate to Willie T. Ribbs in Dan Gurney's Toyota GTP team. So I met him many times. Very friendly, tall guy. Actually, I ran into him at Laguna Seca at the historic races a couple of years ago. In 1989, if I remember correctly, I was at the very first motor race at the Heartland Park Circuit, which is very nice, in Topeka, Kansas, and after the race, he gave me a ride to the airport, which was some distance away. I made a comment to him saying for a racing driver, he was going pretty slow on the highway. And he said to me, I don't mind getting a ticket in my home state, but I don't want to get a ticket outside California. So that was my interesting moment with Rocky Moran. Rocky was suffering from cancer and passed away on September 25th, and he was 74 years old. His son also raced, and at one time in Southern California, he has built a huge karting facility, and I was in touch with him in those days. But then a property developer made him an offer he could not refuse, so it was sold, and now it's probably apartment complex or business park. Our condolences to family and friend of both Rupert Keegan and Rocky Moran. Rest in peace. Okay, sir, I'm sure you've heard all the hoopla and shamazel that's going on at Michael Andretti's IndyCar team. The news is Daniel Torres, CEO of the Group 1000 Insurance and Financial Services, and they are based in Zionsville, Indiana, and primary investor in the Andretti Global, has taken control of the business. And it was money from him and his business that is funding the big facility that Andretti is building in, I think it's called Fisher, Indiana. Now, of course, Michael Andretti, as we know, is the 1991 IndyCar champion. The reports are, I'm sure there'll be more later on, that he will remain with the organization in an advisory and ambassadorial role. And what is interesting here, that news of this big change at a major racing team was first reported by Sportico, a publication. Now, Sportico is owned by Mr. Jay Penske. His company is called Penske Media. Okay, and Penske Media is owned by Jay Penske, and his papito is, of course, Roger Penske, who owns Penske Entertainment, where the IndyCar and the Brickyard comes into. I don't know if you remember a few months ago, Michael Andretti made a comment, and I just could not believe he would say something like that. There are very few people in American motor racing that you don't want to step on or piss off. And I would say Roger Penske is at the top, even more than the France family, because he has tentacles in all forms of racing. And Michael Andretti's comment was that if Roger does not want to spend his money to promote the series, he should sell the series and the speedway. And I just don't think this went down very well with RP. This is even worse than one of his drivers, Brad Keselowski, asking Penske to sell him a part of his team. So I don't know if this is a payback or what's going on here, but basically what has happened here is when people who write the checks make the call. So he brought in these investors, and just like, with Ken Terrell, he brought in Craig Pollock and British American Tobacco and ended up losing his own team. And of course, Ron Dennis had a long-term association friendship with Mansour Ojai, and they were 25% each partner and thought they would never be voted out. But then they had a falling out, and Mansour Ojai staged a palace coup, and Ron was out. And same thing happened to Mr. Louis Chevrolet. He did not want to get involved with bankers from New York City and lost his own company. And unfortunately, the man who started Chevrolet ended up working on the line at his own company as an employee. So, this is human nature, I guess. Money rules, money talks, money walks very fast. But it's sad, and I just don't know what will happen on their Formula One entry. There are some people who are reporting that this year Roger Penske has started dealing with Mr. Dan Torres more than Michael Andretti, and some are saying that this is a way to get their entry, with Michael not being on the program, to get into Formula One. I don't know. But, I'm sure in due course there'll be more information. Your thoughts on this, and what will this do to Andretti F1 Dream, in your opinion?
Well, Michael is trying to get this team on the grid before Mario leaves the earth. So I can understand that, and he's trying every which way, and if he needs to step down, he's going to step down. The biggest problem is you can't step on people like Penske ever. So, I really don't know if this is ever going to make it to the Formula One grid. There's a possibility, but I still think that buying a team would have been an easier task. But now that they're building the facilities in Indiana and in England, I don't think there's any turning back except for full-blown bankruptcy. So my fingers are crossed.
I am pretty sure Mario Andretti will be at the U.S. Grand Prix, and he is always kind enough to at least stop and say hello to me, and you can always have a little bit of conversation. So I will ask him, if he can share some additional information on this. Okay, talking of Indy cars, we have IndyCar champion in a Mercedes. Honda-powered IndyCar champion Alex Palou, the mini machismo from Viva Spania, will drive a Mercedes-AMG GT3 in this weekend's 8-hour race at Indy for Lone Star Racing, so that should be fun. Any final thoughts from you, sir, on the weekend that we just had, and looking forward before we go into Musical Mondial?
Well, yes, I'm looking forward to the Austin Grand Prix. After this long 4-week break. I did not like this long break, but I guess it takes a lot of work to get to the Americas. Nevertheless, I'm happy that you will be there with credentials, Nasser, for a full reportage. But besides that, I still miss France and wish we could all buy a house there together for the new F1 Weekly Palatial Studios, Nasser.
Okay, so we move forward with the final item of the day, Musical Mondial. Summer is over, so we invite Mr. Lee Hazelwood and Miss Nancy Sinatra to the Palatial Studios. Thank you for listening, and please enjoy Paris Summer. Thank you. Bye-bye.